Welcome to episode 112 of the Civil Engineering Podcast, the first podcast dedicated to helping civil engineering professionals succeed in work and life. While this is the 112th episode of the Civil Engineering Podcast, this is only the fourth episode we are broadcasting via video on YouTube, which we plan to do more often, so please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you'd like to listen to any of our past 111 episodes, please visit civilengineeringpodcast.com. I'm your host, Anthony Fasano. I'm a licensed professional engineer who practiced as a civil engineer, but eventually decided I wanted to focus more on inspiring engineers rather than doing the engineering myself. So since then, I've written a book called Engineer Your Own Success, and I've traveled the world helping engineers. And through this podcast, myself and my co-host, Chris Knutson, try to bring you information that can help you succeed in every episode. I've also had the honor of authoring the American Society of Civil Engineers Careers and Leadership column for the past few years. In this episode, I am taking you with me to the offices of Louis Berger in Morristown, New Jersey, where I will sit down with Department Manager Muzamil Husain and talk about many topics, including how to effectively manage mega civil engineering projects. Let's jump right into it. All right, Anthony Fasano here from the Engineering Management Institute, and today I'm at the offices of Louis Berger. I'm here with Muzamil Husain, who's the department manager here. Muzamil, welcome to the Civil Engineering Podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming here and spending some time with me.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. We got to meet at the ASCE conference. We had a conversation. And I said, listen, you're working on some great projects. Let's talk about it and see if we can help some civil engineers that are managing, giving them some project management tips. So before we do that, Muzamil, give our audience just a little bit of your background about what you do and how you got to this point.
That would be a long
the edited version.
A long introduction, but I'll try to make it brief. Originally, I'm from Pakistan. Back home, I've been, number one in most of the things that I've done in my career, in my education. So back home, in engineering school, I stood first. That's something that basically is done back home. Is the comparison, how you stand compared to other people.
Okay, so that's
compared
important.
to a system in the U.S. What I've seen my kids, it's like as long as you do good, you're okay.
Sure.
It's not a good comparison. It's not that we would like to compare with others, but that gives you a motivation, basically. What I've been, or I've done, what I've learned from my parents. That's what it is. My mom taught me how to be compassionate, how to be passionate about what you do. Just do your best. And my dad, who strived for quality, whatever he did, character, perform best what you do, have a character, whatever you take on, make sure that you do your best, do good job at that, focus, all those qualities that I learned from my parents. That's what brought me up to this point. In the U.S., I got here in about 98, 99. I did my master's here. And right after, within 6 months, actually, I started to, look for a job. And I started an engineering firm.
Sure.
A relatively smaller firm. But that gave me an opportunity. Working with a smaller firm gave me an opportunity to work on relatively smaller projects, but all aspects of the projects. And that, I think, I also now tell my colleagues, whoever I mentor, I kind of give them that guideways or guidelines to try to work on all aspects of the project.
Right.
And that, I think, helped me in excelling in my career. I always appreciate my mentors. So back when I started with that's called Medina Consultants. Now it's T.Y. Lin.
Okay.
Chandu Barania. I would like to.
Yeah, that's great.
The name,
I think having a mentor is a great thing.
So he mentored me in early years. So about 4 years I worked with them, and then since then I joined Louis Berger. And at Louis Berger, I have a great mentor here, Hong Sun, who's who had helped me with my career as well, and I've learned a lot from him. So that's just a little bit of background.
Sure.
My focus has been structural engineering, design bridges, design any transportation and facility structures. But as I said, in early stages of my career, I was fortunate to work on smaller and all aspects of the projects. So that made me what I think is better manager or better project manager to understand all aspects of the projects, all aspects of civil engineering, environmental engineering,
Okay.
surveying, drainage, whatnot. Because I
Different
worked
disciplines. The
in different
ways to-
disciplines, and I worked in each discipline basically.
Sure.
So I was a hydraulics guy at one point, drainage, environmental. I've done survey in the field. So all those aspects help me basically to understand different sides of the project.
That's a good point, Muzamil, in that I think sometimes civil engineers today, maybe they're not aware of the value of understanding the different disciplines, which is one of the reasons that we do this podcast, so that they can learn about maybe some of the other disciplines of civil engineering. Because I do believe that the more well-rounded you are as a civil engineering professional, it can help you in managing projects. Yeah. And so I guess one of the questions for you would be, what would you recommend to civil engineers to be able to gain that experience? Because it's not always that easy. They don't always have the opportunity to work in different departments.
I think that's something that everybody needs to express and look for. For example, in this office, a structural engineer working in structural engineering group, I tell them, and they ask me what they want to do. So if they want to work in a civil engineering group or environmental engineering, while they are structural engineer as a core or as a base, they still get to work on different projects, different aspects, and different disciplines.
Okay.
So it's just to express yourself. I think that's in early stages of the career. Just go and ask and try to do. If you're doing internship, that's the time to do internship with different disciplines. And if you are in I would say first 5 years of your career, don't just stay in one discipline. Try to, if your company is not offering it, see if there's a better opportunity somewhere. Because that's in first 5 years, if you don't get to work on different aspects of the projects or different disciplines, I think you're gonna get focused on one aspect or one discipline, and I think that could be lacking in when you become a project manager or become a lead in an office or in a department.
It can limit you.
So can limit you in understanding.
Sure.
All aspects of project.
Yeah, I think that's a great point for civil engineers and their managers, remembering that in the first 5 years of your career, it's very much like a kid where like you're learning a lot of new habits. It's a great time to learn and develop habits and learn new things. And it's also a very flexible time in your career that you can try multiple things. So if you're a young civil engineer, you should express that interest. As Muzamil said, people aren't just going to put you in different things unless you express yourself and say, listen, I want to be a well-rounded civil engineer, so can you move me around a little bit, at least in the beginning? Can I work with other disciplines? On the flip side of that, if you're a manager and you have young engineers working for you, you should be proactive in letting them know that you're open to them trying different things. In fact, I want to give you different opportunities early in your career. Because quite frankly, a lot of times coming out of school, you don't know what kind of civil engineering you want to do. I went to school for civil engineering, and I ended up doing land development. I did a lot of residential design, some stormwater included, and planning portions of the projects. But there was no class on site civil or residential development in my school.
Sure.
So I didn't know that until I got out and I tried it. So I think that's a really good message in that, express yourself, that you want to be flexible, you want to be multi-talented, and as an engineer, as a manager, give your people the opportunity to do that. And I think, as Muzamil said, is you need to communicate that to younger engineers, because a lot of times they're not comfortable saying that.
Exactly. Yeah.
They don't want to ask.
Yeah. So that's one of the aspects that if you are getting to a position as as a manager or a lead position, you got to have some training on leadership trainings or management trainings where you really can open up your eyes of how to communicate, how to listen,
Yep.
how to better understand others. Qualities of, as I indicated, character, communication. I personally believe in my core values are innovation. Try to open for new ideas. So it doesn't matter what level of experience you have in your career. Even an intern can give you a great idea. So communicating with everybody, just letting them be open to express themselves with new ideas. I work on any project and I discuss with everybody
Sure.
just to see if they got some great idea.
Right.
That's so innovation. Inclusion, include everybody, empower your young engineers, give them bigger responsibility. Let them do some mistakes.
Sure.
But if you need to discipline them, sometime you need to. You need to become harsh.
Right. You have to give flexibility, but then when it's time,
you got to discipline. So these are the different aspects that you, as a manager, have to kind of try to get good at, which comes with the time, with experience.
Sure.
But at the same time, training is important. You got to get some training about that.
So, Muzamil, you manage some very large projects here.
Yeah.
And, I want to talk to you a little bit about project management. There's different kinds of management. There's certainly, part of engineering management is people management. That's a big part of it. And, project management, you have a lot of tasks. You have different departments. You have different companies you're working with. You have utilities. You have other things. In terms of project management, what would you say are some things that you've been able to do on some of your larger projects that you think have made you successful? Like, is there any specific things you follow, or whether it's certain types of meetings or workflow, or what are some strategies you can offer up here?
Yeah, I mean that's it always depends upon the client, type of project, size of the project. We use different type of strategies and techniques. Develop some certain spreadsheets where we put all the projects, what different, divide them into different tasks, depending upon the schedule prepared with the client. So if we have activities divided into, different disciplines,
Yep.
then we assign hours, assign how many man hours are needed.
Manpower, hours, backlog.
Yeah, so we prepare a full spreadsheet for each project, basically, depending on the size of the project, and do the resource management accordingly. What good thing at Berger, what we have implemented is a one profit center.
Oh,
okay. So in that case, we could involve all different offices from around the country or the world, without the thinking of which office or which company or which discipline is going to get the profit out of it.
Right. Take that out of the equation.
That's out of the equation. You work for the project and you work for the company to get the best best resources to work on the project. Basically.
So everyone's kind of got the same common goal.
So it has become so easy for us to pick up a call, phone and call our Virginia office or North Carolina office or Boston office. So okay, here it is.
Yep.
I need two engineers for this project, and that that similarly the other way around. If someone needs, I get a call. Oh, I need a CAD person today.
Right.
And so that's the resource management, and I appreciate how our management has implemented this this type of system.
That's interesting, because it sounds like that for such a large company, that makes it really still a team atmosphere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So at the project level, we got the resource management based on the spreadsheets and everything. However, at the company level or at the regional level, We have our weekly or biweekly calls to make sure everybody, we understand each other's needs and whatever the resource needs as well as their projects. So we know exactly what's going on as a department manager or as a company lead or department lead, being on top of the needs of the whole. For example, for us, it's structural engineering. So we focus on what's needed in the country as far as structural engineering and which office and which region needs what type of resources for next 3
So you'll
months,
serve everyone.
next 6 months, next year.
I see. Okay.
So I serve for everybody, and they serve us.
They serve for you. Yeah. No, I like it. It's very team oriented.
Team oriented.
It's one team.
Resource
one
management.
team. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
One team. Yeah. Because I do see that that is a struggle with a lot of AE firms where the different disciplines are like fighting over someone wants to be profitable, so I got to help this first and that other thing.
Yeah.
So that's a good approach. So one of the other things I want to ask you is I know you work on some really large projects like the maglev project and some other projects that you're working on. Take us inside of your management. I want to look at it like in terms of let's say we look at a day in your life, so to speak, which I know is different as an engineer. Every day things happen. But on a project like the maglev train project or, a larger project, as the project manager for your work, what is your approach, right? So what I'm getting at is I know you can't get too into the weeds because you're the manager, but I also know that you need to keep an eye on things, right? So what is your approach every day when you come in as to how you know what to work on that day? How do you know where to shift your energy? What's your mindset when you come in each day in terms of what to work on specifically?
That's a real involved and tough question. And that's a lot of people struggle with, and me too. I'll be honest and fair about it. But larger projects, I will talk about. I have a couple of displays here. So this is Route 80 project, which is about 10 miles of reconstruction.
10 miles. Yep.
10 miles of reconstruction.
Okay.
In the within the Patterson to Rochelle Park, I believe.
So that's 10 miles of reconstruction of Route 80 highway?
80 and widening, and that's what we are working on as a preliminary engineering.
Okay.
That's about $300 million project. It involves 21 bridges and then the reconstruction of all, the pavement and widening as well.
Sure.
So it's a bigger project, so what it is to manage that project, I'm managing all the structural aspects. So it's just how you use your resources based on the experience of different colleagues. Somebody has a good experience on the noise walls. We're going to replace and upgrade all the noise walls.
Okay.
So it becomes the lead on that project, on that aspect. Then all the structures we've divided into different groups based on their prior experience. It's just how you best utilize your resources.
Right. You have to get used to your resources. You have to know who you have available.
Know what's available as well as what they're good at. I think that's what project management is.
Yeah.
You're basically utilizing your resources to the best of their ability, and then basically empower them and give them the opportunity to come up with something new, innovate, do a mistake, but learn from it and grow from it.
Right.
Basically, so working on a bigger project, yes. So we have developed maybe I can open one of the spreadsheets to show you how we. And just like you said, it's not micromanagement, but I, as a project management, need to know exactly what's going on with each aspect. So we do a weekly meeting, make sure everybody provides their inputs and updates of what's going on. I go and talk to individually each of the lead on that, whatever the aspect of the project they're working on. I think that's the way it is, and it's not a straightforward thing that for any project it will work.
It's always going to be different.
It's different, but that's for this project that works for maglev.
Can you describe the maglev project for the
Yes.
audience, just so they know?
Maglev project is a high-speed rail magnetic levitation train that's basically a technology from Japan, and it still I'm under an NDA, that's a non-disclosure agreement.
Sure.
So I cannot talk too much about it. But
Just in like terms of size.
Yes. So I have a presentation that we have done a public hearing.
Okay.
So that information I could share. So the project is basically the high-speed rail. The overall project is going to be from Boston to DC. What we worked on in our concept development is a high-speed rail from the New York. I can't disclose the areas, from New York to DC, and currently we are working on the preliminary engineering aspect of it, and going through the environmental approvals. And that section is from Baltimore to DC. Okay. Basically. So
are you allowed to share like budget numbers? Or?
Yes. So it's preliminary estimates about $15 billion from Baltimore to DC. The train would take about 15 minutes from Baltimore to DC, 350 miles an hour. Wow. And it's about 60% tunnels, 40% elevated structures.
That's intense.
Yeah. So I do have. I don't know.
Well, before you go there, let me just pull this out, because I think that there's a couple of lessons to be learned there that's important. Yes, project management is certainly resource management. You have to allocate the right resources in the right locations, and when something happens, a problem, quote unquote, arises, you need to figure out the best way to solve that with the best people. The other thing that I heard you say that I think is very valuable, you're saying you're using maybe a spreadsheet, there could be other tools, but you have some kind of a dashboard that allows you to measure the progress of the project or see what's going on with the project, kind of that you can look at, kind of gives you a heartbeat of what's going on. Sure. Is that accurate?
That is accurate on two different aspects. One, the spreadsheets that we have developed are on the technical side, like who's doing, what's the percentage complete on the individual tasks. But then we have a dashboard that shows on the financial side,
budgeting versus
and what's going on. So that's a very good system that company has implemented, and we can see that performance in terms of graphs and the all the good stuff for each project, basically. Sure. It's a good dashboard that shows up every morning in front of you. What's the status of all the projects that you work on?
So that's something you look at on a daily basis.
Green, it's something green or red or orange or yellow. Right. So based on that, you're just basically staying on top of the financial side as well.
Right. No, I think that's great. I mean, listen, I think one of the things that the civil engineering industry can get better at is providing managers with that data. Sure. I think as technology develops, more and more firms are using more and more tools to be able to do that. Quite frankly, it could be a spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be an elaborate tool, or it can be an elaborate tool. It depends what the system is, what the project is. But as long as it's giving you the criteria that you need to make sure that the project is on budget, on schedule, et cetera.
So I'll talk a little bit more on that. We have a system called EVMS. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's earned value system.
Okay, earned value, yes.
Yeah, so basically it's not only that you're looking at the schedule, you're looking at the financial aspect of it together on one graph. Yep. Because typically you will check what's the schedule of the project as a separate tool. Are you ahead or are you behind? And then you will check your finances. Are you, under budget or over budget? But how do you combine them together, overlap them? And then you could be delayed or ahead of the schedule, but at the same time your budget might be opposite. Means if you're ahead of schedule, on the other side you see that you're over budget, but at that time, but that over budget might be less than how ahead of schedule you are. Right. So you may be a positive on that, and that's at the same time. So the over budget doesn't mean that you are really over budget, or the other way around as well. Right. So you are under budget, but you are really lagging on your schedule as well. So if someone is just looking at the budget on the financial side, without looking at the schedule,
you need to look at it.
But when you overlap the two, then you get the real picture.
So the earned value approach, it requires you to estimate the percentage of work complete. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And that's something that is that something that you do?
It's
Or is it something your
certainly
team helps you do?
it's a team effort.
Okay.
But as a project manager, you have to provide that to the project controls team.
Gotcha.
We call it. That's a separate department we have. It's a
To
project
get the data
controls.
together for you.
Put it together, and they provide you that
Beautiful.
the information that where you stand as far as the earned value of the project.
Okay. No, that's great. So one of the other things that I wanted to ask you going back to that was, you said as a project manager, you need to get good at understanding your resources and then deploying them in the right areas, so to speak. So how does one get good at that?
Good question. I mean, I think few aspects. It's again your core values makes you excel at those things. If you are well disciplined, if you're a good listener, the communication aspect is the best thing. Is that you're a good listener. You understand others. You pay attention.
Sure.
What's the need of the other person?
Right.
How do you what would it take to empower the other person to be good at what they should be? So I think it's just that being a good communicator. I'm not a good orator, but I'm a good listener.
Okay. Well, that's important. Yeah.
I may not be speaking well. I think I know that. But as far as listening and understanding others, feeling out others, being compassionate, I think those values help me in making those type of decisions and being good at what others can do best. Understanding others.
Yeah.
I think that's very important aspect.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that because we are doing some research at the Engineering Management Institute into what makes great engineering managers, and we're actually surveying a lot of engineers, and a lot of them are telling us that their great managers listened very well and gave them very good feedback. So it's a pattern that we're seeing over and over. So I'm glad you brought that up. So one of the things I want to ask you about your team, and you can kind of hear, Muzamil, when we get to this point, talking about how to manage your resources, there's a quantitative side of it, like all engineering, but there's a qualitative side of it. Like Muzamil said, getting to know your people beyond just like they're good at structural engineering, but who can communicate effectively, who can deal with a problematic client better than the other person. So, to be a good engineering manager, you've got to have both of those, or you got to be able to recognize those different qualities in different people, I think, for sure. But the one question, though, I want to ask you here is, in terms of your team culture, you talked before about being open, about people coming to you and asking questions. What do you do with your team to try to, as opposed to the quantitative stuff, to try to impart to them that you're a team and that, to set kind of a culture for the team?
So basically, as far as the qualitative end of it, goes back to the same qualities of how I communicate and understand others, and that's the need of the employee or the colleague that I'm working with. But at the same time, making a qualitative judgment as what's the need of the project, what's the need of the client, and communicating that to the person that you're working with, or knowing by yourself.
Right.
I think that's where the qualitative aspect is what we do as an engineer or as an engineering firm. What is our ultimate goal is to perform or produce a product, engineering design plans, specifications, estimates, and to provide that to the client so the contractor can construct that. That's the ultimate goal. And if that is not done well, nothing else is work. There's something wrong. So that, to me, that is what that communication, the need of the project, need of the client to your team, and then connecting them together. I think that is a good quality of the manager, to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Sure.
How I make sure that the person has the understanding aspect is one, but at the same time, how they grow their career, the qualitative end of it is basically the training, different types of trainings that they should
Sure.
Go
Right.
through.
So I think what you're hearing here a lot throughout this conversation that I like with Muzamil here is teamwork. We're hearing about the One Profit Center, which has created a team in the company. We're hearing about how you connect with your team and reinforce certain things. And I think that's a really, really big part of successful engineering companies and teams and projects, is that teamwork mentality. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and finish up with the civil engineering hot seat. We're going to put Muzamil on the hot seat and pepper him with a few last questions. PPI is a proud sponsor of the Engineering Management Institute. Thinking about advancing in your career by taking your FE, PE, or SE exam? Visit ppi2pass.com to find everything you need to start preparing today. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Civil Engineering Podcast on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel here for more podcast episodes, and for all of our Engineering Manager 80/20 Shorts videos, where we interview successful engineering managers and bring their strategies to you. Now it's time to jump into the Civil Engineering Hot Seat segment. All right, we're back here at the offices of Louis Berger with Muzamil Husain. Muzamil is the department manager for structural engineering here. We've been talking a lot about teamwork, a lot about teams and management, but now we're going to put Muzamil on the civil engineering hot seat. You ready?
Sure.
Let's do it. All right, so the first question, are there any specific rituals that you practice every day, Muzamil? For example, do you have a morning ritual or a lunchtime routine, something that you do consistently on a daily basis that has contributed to your success?
As for success, I mean, making myself calm at certain points, that that certainly helped me. In the morning, I have a ritual of certain type of food that I eat.
Okay.
If I don't get it, I feel something missing. So
Okay.
food, same thing during lunch.
Okay.
Walk. I go
Take a
out,
walk.
take a walk about 10-15 minutes, and go for a short ride, and get food, just to get change the focus from what you're doing, and then at least start to rethink of the half of the day that I've spent, what I did good, what I did bad.
Right.
Just reevaluate myself, and then come back.
It's like a
for the
reset.
rest.
It's like a
reset
reset.
yourself,
Okay.
and then come back for the rest of the day. So I mean, it's just to make sure that I evaluate myself.
Sure.
Reevaluate myself. I think that those are some of the rituals that I make sure that I give a little bit of time, a break to myself, and think about what I've done. At the same time, just call family.
Right. Getting away. You're getting away
from what I'm doing.
That's excellent. All right, next question. Is there one book that you might recommend to engineers regularly, or just one book in general that you found to be helpful for you in your career, professional, personal development?
Yeah, John C. Maxwell.
Okay.
I think it's the title is 21 Irrefutable
Laws of Leadership, or something along those lines. Yes. Okay.
Sorry.
That's John Maxwell's great. He's got great stuff on leadership.
Yeah. So that's I would say that's a good book to read.
Okay, that's great. Two more questions. The first one is, if you look back on your career, and you don't have to give names here, but if you were to think of one of your favorite managers, one of the best managers, quote unquote, that you had as an engineer, what made that person such a good manager? What are some of the traits that you remember about that person that makes you think of them as one of your favorite managers?
I mean, I think I indicated a couple of them.
Yeah.
Chandu
Yep.
was one, and in this office, obviously Hong. I think it's just being genuine, being focused on what's needed at that time, being open to listen, and compassionate. Some of the qualities that you don't have to be excellent at what you do as far as you need to, but I'm just saying as a manager, it's how do you open up yourself to your colleagues, to your employees,
Being authentic.
being open, understanding. I think those are some of the qualities that I think at that time I didn't. Whenever I went to see them, to talk to them for my problems, it didn't. Most of them were not focused on technical aspects.
Right.
Some personal, something maybe dealing with someone to understand how should I've done it differently. So it's just being open and genuine about what they think is the best way or better way, what they would have done. So I think it's just being a good listener and understanding the need and having some compassion and taking the time to listen.
Sure.
I think that's about it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. All right, last question here on the hot seat for Muzamil is, you get into an elevator with a civil engineer and you have 30 seconds to give him or her career advice. What are you telling them?
I think the passion is the main thing that I think that's needed. Being passionate of what you do. That's basically ingrained in me, and I think if you love what you do, and if you're passionate about what you do, that's what will excel you in your career.
Yeah,
that's
great. Be passionate in what you do.
Yeah, be focused. Whatever you do, just like you change your career from a civil engineering to a leadership.
Yeah.
But what you said in one word is that you have to just work at it. Just keep doing it.
Keep doing it. Be consistent.
Be consistent. Be focused, and be passionate about what you do. I think you can excel, or you can do great things. Doesn't matter what it is, engineering or any other aspects. Just give your best.
Great. Well, Muzamil, thank you so much for allowing us to interview you for the Civil Engineering Podcast. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, same here. Appreciate coming here and giving a little bit of time to me and understanding. Opening up myself.
Yeah.
It helps me understand as well. I'm going to rethink about what I've said and try to reconnect with a lot of things that sometimes it's better to express and rethink because some of the values and some of the core values that you have, you may get disconnected because of the daily routines of whatever you're doing, whatever you're working in, and then by reconnecting like this, I think it gives you a little bit of a focus back. You just focus back.
It reminds you what's
important in your life, and you. So I think it's a good thing that you are doing.
Thank you.
Connecting people back to their core values and talking. What's most important in their career and in their life. That's
and now your team can watch this and make sure you're doing those things.
I'm not giving it anyway.
Yeah. And for those of you watching on YouTube, thanks for tuning into the Civil Engineering Podcast on YouTube. Remember to subscribe to the Civil Engineering Podcast playlist. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Civil Engineering Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more video broadcasts of the podcast, or visit our website at engineeringmanagementinstitute.org for all of our free content for engineers. Until next time, I hope that you continue to engineer your own success.